She lived in a small, crowded neighborhood where life was hard and people struggled just to get by. Every morning, she woke up before the sun, tired but determined to start her day. Her family didn't have much. The small house they lived in was old and cracked in many places. The roof leaked when it rained, and the kitchen barely had enough space to cook meals. Despite all of this, she always carried a smile. She had learned early that happiness did not come from wealth, but from small joys and acts of kindness. From a young age, she had learned to work hard. She delivered bread for a small bakery in her area, walked long distances to get groceries, and sometimes helped neighbors with small chores just to earn a little extra money. The work was exhausting, but she never complained. Every night she would come home, her hands sore and her feet aching. Yet, she felt a quiet sense of pride knowing she had done her best. She also carried something else with her, a deep sense of empathy. She noticed the struggles of people around her and often did what she could to help, even if it was just a small gesture. One day, while she was walking to the bakery, she saw an old man sitting on the side of the street. His clothes were torn and dirty, and he looked thin and weak. Most people passed by without even looking, but she felt a tug at her heart. She stopped and asked him if he was hungry. The old man looked up, surprised, and nodded slightly. She reached into her bag and took out a small loaf of bread she had bought earlier. She handed it to him with a gentle smile. He looked at her in disbelief, as if he had not expected anyone to care. She didn't ask for anything in return, and she didn't think about what people might say. She just wanted to help. From that day on, she made it a habit to bring some food for the old man whenever she could. Sometimes it was bread, sometimes leftover vegetables from her small meals at home, or even a warm cup of tea she could manage to make. She didn't have much, but she gave what she could. The old man began to look forward to her visits. He would smile when he saw her, and she could see a spark of hope in his eyes. No one had treated him like this in a long time. Her life continued to be difficult. She never let it stop her from helping others. At work, she was polite and hardworking. She often stayed late to help her coworkers or to finish extra tasks, even though she could have rushed home to rest. Her colleagues admired her quiet determination, though they didn't know much about the struggles she faced at home. She carried herself with a calm dignity, never complaining, always willing to lend a hand. Neighbors often noticed her kindness. If someone was sick, she would bring food. If a child was crying, she would offer comfort. Her reputation as someone genuinely caring began to grow, though she never sought recognition. She didn't help others for praise. She helped because it felt right. Life had taught her that little acts of kindness could make a big difference. And she lived by that belief every day. Even though she worked hard and helped others, she still had moments of quiet sadness. She would sit by the window in her small room at night, thinking about how unfair life could be. She missed having luxuries others took for granted: a proper bed, a warm meal every day, clean clothes, and the chance to enjoy a small vacation. But even in these moments, she didn't let bitterness take over. She reminded herself that gratitude and kindness were more valuable than wealth, and she tried to focus on the good things she did have. One chilly morning, she noticed the old man shivering on the corner where he usually stayed. His coat was torn, and he looked even more fragile than usual. Without thinking twice, she took off her own scarf and wrapped it around his thin shoulders. The man's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't speak. She simply smiled and patted his hand gently before walking to her work. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, knowing she had made a difference in someone's day. Even if it was just a small comfort, her family sometimes worried about her. They would say, "You give too much. What about yourself?" But she always replied softly, "I can only do what I can. It doesn't cost me much to care, and it might mean everything to someone else." She didn't need anyone to understand her. She just knew that helping others made her life feel meaningful. The old man started to engage with her in small conversations. He would ask about her day, how her family was doing, and sometimes about her dreams. She always answered honestly, speaking about her hopes for a better life, not just for herself, but for those around her. She spoke about wanting to see her neighborhood flourish, to have children laugh in safe streets, to help the elderly live with dignity. The man listened quietly, nodding occasionally, but she could tell he was impressed by her pure intentions. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. She never missed a day bringing small food or talking to the old man. Even when she felt exhausted or discouraged, she made the effort. Life continued to throw challenges at her, but she faced each one with courage. She began to notice subtle changes around her. The neighbors started helping each other more. The children played more freely. Even at work, the atmosphere improved as people noticed her good heart. Her actions, though small, were creating ripples she had never imagined. Despite the struggles, she found moments of joy in unexpected places. A flower blooming near her home, a child's laughter echoing down the street, or a simple thank you from someone she helped. She treasured these moments, knowing that happiness often came in quiet, simple ways. She also noticed that helping others didn't just change their lives. It changed her own. It made her stronger, more resilient, and more hopeful. One afternoon, as she walked home after a long day, she found the old man waiting for her. He was sitting under a small tree, looking more fragile than ever. She immediately took off her jacket and wrapped it around him, then offered him a small meal she had saved from work. The man looked at her with a deep, almost unexplainable gratitude. She didn't ask why he was so thankful, because she already knew that kindness had a language of its own. Little did she know, this old man was not just a poor stranger. There was something unusual about the way he observed her, the quiet intelligence in his eyes, and the way he never pressured her for anything in return. He noticed everything, how she treated others, how she handled her hardships, and how she never gave up hope. He had seen many people in his life, but few had touched him in the way she did. The days continued like this, a rhythm of small kindnesses and quiet resilience. She kept giving without expecting, and he kept watching without revealing. Their connection was simple, but profound, a silent understanding that goodness existed even in a world filled with hardship. Every act of care, every gentle smile, every shared meal strengthened an invisible bond between them. She was unaware that her small gestures were not just helping a stranger. They were slowly capturing the attention of someone who could change her life forever, even in the toughest moments. She never lost hope. One rainy night, when her small home leaked and her family had little to eat, she still managed to find a few pieces of bread to take to the old man. She walked through the wet streets, her shoes soaked and her heart heavy, yet she didn't hesitate. When she reached him, he smiled, and for the first time, she noticed a warmth in his gaze that went beyond gratitude. She shrugged off her own discomfort, handing him the food and a blanket she had borrowed from home. It was in these moments, small but meaningful, that her true character shone. She didn't know it, but her life of struggle and quiet generosity was creating a story that would one day change everything. She had no idea that this old man, sitting quietly and accepting her kindness with a gentle smile, was watching her not just as a recipient of help, but as someone searching for something rare, someone genuine, selfless, and true. And so, her days continued, filled with work, small struggles, and quiet acts of compassion. Every day, she proved that a kind heart could survive even the hardest of circumstances. Every day, she unknowingly drew the attention of someone who would eventually reveal a truth far beyond what she could imagine. Her life was ordinary, her struggles real, yet the purity of her actions was extraordinary. In her simple, giving heart lay the beginning of a story that would forever change her destiny. She continued her routine, waking up early, walking to work, and making small efforts to help those around her. The old man was always there, waiting quietly, watching her without ever asking for more than the little food she brought. She never knew he was observing her so closely, noticing how she treated everyone with respect and warmth. Even people who were rude or unfair were met with her patience and gentle smile. Her heart did not choose based on appearance, wealth, or power. It was natural for her to care for anyone who needed help. One day, she noticed a young child crying near a corner shop. The mother was busy shopping and didn't see the child wandering. Without hesitation, she ran to the child, comforted him, and held his hand until the mother returned. The mother thanked her profusely, but she simply waved it off, saying, "It's nothing. Just take care of him." She did not want to make a big deal of her actions, and her modesty made her kindness even more genuine. Meanwhile, the old man continued to watch her every move. He had seen people act kindly before, but never with such sincerity. He began to think about how rare it was to find someone whose kindness had no strings attached. While most people helped others expecting something in return, she gave purely because it felt right. Every day he saw her sacrifice her comfort to help others, and every day it made him more certain that she was someone special. She faced hardships at home too. Sometimes the family ran out of basic food items, and she had to work extra hours just to make ends meet. Yet she never let this stop her from helping others. On particularly difficult days, when she returned home exhausted, she would still find a way to bring a small snack or warm tea to the old man. Her resilience was remarkable. She found strength in helping others, even when she had little herself. Her actions spoke volumes about her character, showing that generosity was not about wealth, but about heart. The old man began to engage her in more conversations. He asked her about her dreams, what she wanted from life, and what made her happy. She spoke honestly, sharing her wish to live in a place where people were kinder to each other, where children could play safely, and where the elderly could be treated with respect. She didn't speak of riches or fame, only of small but meaningful changes that could make life better for everyone. The old man listened silently, impressed by her wisdom despite her young age and simple life. She sometimes questioned why life was so hard, but she never allowed herself to become bitter. On rainy days, when she walked home drenched and tired, she still carried a smile and offered help to anyone who needed it. One evening, she noticed an old woman struggling with heavy bags. She immediately rushed to help, carrying the bags all the way to the woman's home. The woman tried to pay her, but she refused, saying, "I don't need anything. Helping is enough." Her refusal of payment was not pride, it was her genuine belief that kindness should not come with expectation. At work, she was equally dedicated. She would often stay late, helping colleagues finish their tasks or teaching a new worker how to complete difficult jobs. People began to notice her sincerity, though few understood the struggles she faced outside of work. Her colleagues admired her quiet strength, though they didn't fully grasp how much she sacrificed daily. She didn't want recognition, only to do what was right. Her integrity and empathy were evident to anyone who looked closely. One chilly morning, you found the old man shivering more than usual. His coat had holes, and he seemed weaker than before. Without a second thought, she gave him her own thick sweater, wrapped it around his shoulders, and handed him a small breakfast she had prepared. He looked at her with eyes that spoke more than words could. There was gratitude, yes, but also a sense of awe at how someone could care so deeply without expecting anything. She smiled, not realizing the depth of his attention, and continued on her way to work. The old man, however, was beginning to form plans in his mind. He had seen her help countless people, small and large. He had noticed the way she never asked for help, the way she bore her own burdens silently, and the way her heart reached out to others without judgment. He had been searching for someone genuine, someone who had the strength to remain kind even in difficult circumstances. She had shown him that such people existed. Despite the hardships she faced, she never stopped dreaming. On quiet nights, she would sit by the small window in her room, imagining a better future. She dreamed of a home where her family would never worry about food or shelter, of a life where she could help more people without the constant strain of survival. She never dreamed of wealth for its own sake. She dreamed of freedom to be kind, to make the world a better place for those around her. One afternoon, she found a stray dog shivering in the rain. She wrapped it in her coat, carried it home, and gave it some food. Her neighbors looked on in surprise, noting how she always helped even the smallest and seemingly insignificant creatures. She didn't care about recognition, only that someone or something in the world was a little happier because of her actions. She felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing she could make even a small difference. The old man continued to watch silently. Every act of kindness, every moment of selflessness, every smile she gave despite hardship was being noted. He began to trust her heart, knowing that it was pure and untainted by greed or selfishness. He had spent a lifetime seeing people take advantage of others, and she was unlike anyone he had ever encountered. Her compassion was rare. He realized that he had found someone truly extraordinary. As the weeks passed, their bond deepened, though neither fully understood it. She continued her acts of kindness without hesitation, and he continued his silent observation. He began to reflect on his own life, thinking about the many people he had met who were not genuine, who were only interested in wealth or status. Her actions reminded him that there were still people who were honest and caring, people who could teach the world the meaning of true kindness. One evening, the old man asked her to sit and share some food with him. They spoke for hours about life, challenges, and the importance of being good to others. She shared her experiences, her struggles, and her dreams. He listened, offering gentle advice, but never trying to change her. She felt comfortable with him in a way she did not with others. There was no judgment, no expectation, only understanding. As time went on, she noticed subtle changes in the neighborhood. People began to help one another more, inspired by her actions. Children were safer in the streets, and elderly people received more attention and care. Even co-workers began to act more kindly towards each other. Her acts of compassion had started to ripple through the community, showing that one person's kindness could influence many. She had no idea that her efforts were creating a wave of positivity that extended far beyond what she could see. One particularly cold morning, she saw the old man struggling to get up from the bench. She ran to him, helped him stand, and offered her arm to support him. She gave him warm tea and some bread, and he accepted it gratefully. In that moment, she realized that helping someone could be more than just giving food or comfort. It could be a lifeline, a reminder that someone cared. She never imagined that her consistent acts of care were changing someone else's life in profound ways. The old man, meanwhile, had begun to plan something quietly. He had seen her true character, her resilience, and her kindness. He knew that her heart was rare, and he started to think about the possibility of revealing the truth one day. But he also wanted to test her further, to see if her kindness would remain unchanged in the face of hardship. He had seen enough to know she was extraordinary, yet he was still curious to see the strength of her integrity. Through all of this, she remained humble and unaware of the attention she had drawn. She didn't seek approval or recognition, only a chance to help and to live honestly. Every day she chose to be kind, to be patient, and to remain strong. Her life was not easy, but her actions showed a quiet heroism, the kind that does not make headlines, but changes lives quietly, deeply, and forever. The old man continued to watch her, quietly admiring her unwavering spirit. He saw how she treated everyone equally, whether rich or poor, strong or weak, young or old. He realized that her kindness was not a fleeting gesture, but a fundamental part of who she was. Her actions reflected a heart that was pure, a soul that was resilient, and a spirit that was unbreakable. He began to feel a deep respect and growing admiration for her, knowing that he had never encountered anyone quite like her. Even though she faced daily challenges, she never let despair take over. She found beauty in the smallest things, a flower growing through the cracks, a bird singing at dawn, a child smiling unexpectedly. These small joys reminded her that life could be kind in ways that were often overlooked. She also noticed that the more she gave, the richer she felt in a way money could never buy. Her happiness came from the knowledge that she was making a difference, even if no one else saw it. The old man, observing her quietly, began to understand that her true value could not be measured by wealth or status. He realized that her kindness, patience, and integrity were worth more than anything he had ever known. Her life, filled with struggle, yet guided by compassion, had become a living example of the power of a good heart. He knew that one day he would reveal his own story to her, but for now, he was content to watch and wait. Learning from her and appreciating the rare gem of humanity she represented, as the days continued, the bond between them grew silently. She continued to help. He continued to observe, and neither knew the full impact of the other's presence. Her acts of kindness were creating ripples of hope and compassion, and he was learning that true wealth could never be measured in money alone. In the quiet moments, in the small gestures, and in the everyday acts of goodness, a remarkable story was unfolding, one that would soon change both of their lives forever. She continued her life quietly, working hard and helping others whenever she could. She never imagined that the old man she had been feeding and comforting was observing her with a careful, calculating eye. To her, he was just a poor man in need, someone she wanted to help because it felt right. She did not think of him as anything more, and that made her actions pure. She gave without expecting, smiled without pretense, and listened without judgment. The old man, meanwhile, was not who he seemed. In reality, he was a wealthy businessman who had experienced betrayal and disappointment in life. He had lost faith in people's intentions and decided to live in disguise as a poor man to see who was truly kind. He wandered the streets, observing those around him, testing hearts, and seeking someone genuine. When he saw her, he noticed something different. Her kindness was not occasional or forced. It was consistent, selfless, and sincere. She helped even when she had nothing to spare, and she cared for others without ever asking for anything in return. Over time, he began to engage her in deeper conversations. He asked about her dreams, her fears, and her thoughts on life. She shared openly, speaking about how she wished to see the world a little better each day. She talked about small changes she wanted to see in her community, such as neighbors helping each other, children playing safely, and the elderly being treated with respect. She spoke not of wealth or comfort, but of love, kindness, and compassion. Her words were honest and heartfelt, and he listened carefully. He was amazed by her insight and wisdom despite her young age and modest life. She began to notice something different about the old man too. Though he appeared poor, there was a calm confidence in his presence. He never demanded attention or help. He only observed, sometimes offering quiet advice or a gentle smile. She felt a strange comfort in his company. Unlike others who might judge her or pity her circumstances, he treated her as an equal. She did not know it, but she had begun to form a bond with him based on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. Life continued to challenge her. There were days when work was exhausting, when her family had little to eat, and when the streets seemed colder and crueler than usual. Yet she never wavered in her kindness. She helped children, the elderly, neighbors, and even strangers she met along the way. Every act, no matter how small, reinforced her belief that the world could be better if people cared. Her determination and resilience were remarkable. She found strength in helping others. Even when she had very little herself, the old man watched silently, taking note of every action. He had seen many people in his lifetime, but few had impressed him the way she did. He began to consider revealing his true identity, but he wanted to be certain that her kindness was genuine, unaltered by the knowledge of wealth or status. He had seen others change when they discovered that someone had power or money. He wanted to see if she would remain herself unchanged, even in the face of revelation. He continued to test, observing her consistency, patience, and empathy. One rainy evening, he noticed her hurrying through the streets, soaked from head to toe, yet still carrying a small meal in her hands. She approached a family huddled under a makeshift shelter and offered them food and a warm cup of tea. Her clothes were wet, her shoes filled with water, yet she smiled and spoke gently to them, giving comfort and hope. The old man watched, feeling a deep admiration for her unwavering spirit. She did not think of herself. She only thought of helping others. In that moment, he realized the depth of her compassion. He decided to start testing her further, though subtly. He would speak about hardships, about difficult people, and even about situations where giving could be costly. She always responded with patience, wisdom, and a gentle heart. She never acted out of fear or expectation. She helped when she could, advised when she was asked, and comforted when it was needed. Every response, every gesture, proved to him that she was extraordinary at work. She continued to inspire others by her actions. She helped coworkers, offered advice to new employees, and never sought praise. Her sincerity was evident to those who took notice, though few truly understood the challenges she faced outside work. Her life was full of quiet heroism, the kind that does not make headlines but changes lives deeply. The old man saw this and felt that her heart was rare, a rarity that could not be measured in gold or power. One day he asked her to join him for tea. She hesitated at first, thinking it a strange request from a poor man she had been helping. But she accepted, trusting his gentle demeanor. They sat under a small shelter, and he asked about her dreams for the future. She spoke about her wish to make life better for others, her desire to see kindness spread, and her hope that the world could be a little gentler. She spoke with a clarity and warmth that touched him deeply. He had never encountered someone who cared so deeply without expectation. Their conversations became a regular part of her life. She looked forward to sharing small stories, dreams, and thoughts. He listened attentively, offering advice when necessary, but never trying to dominate the conversation. She never suspected the full truth about him. She only knew that he was wise, observant, and kind in his own way. The trust between them grew naturally, unforced and genuine, as they learned from each other. Meanwhile, he reflected on his own life. He had wealth, power, and influence, but he had always felt a lack of genuine human connection. Many people around him were interested only in what they could gain. In her, he saw something entirely different. She gave without thinking, loved without conditions, and remained strong in the face of adversity. She reminded him that there were still people in the world whose hearts were pure and intentions sincere. He began to feel something he had not felt in years' hope. She continued her acts of kindness in the neighborhood. She helped a woman carry groceries, guided lost children back to their homes, and offered words of encouragement to anyone who seemed downhearted. Her actions were becoming noticed, quietly inspiring others to act with more compassion. She had no idea that the old man's eyes were always on her, analyzing every choice, every action, and every gesture. He was learning about her character not through her words alone, but through her consistent behavior over time. The old man also observed how she handled herself during moments of stress. When life gave her challenges, she faced them with courage and grace. She never gave up, never complained unnecessarily, and never let hardship turn her heart cold. He began to understand that true character is revealed not in moments of comfort, but in times of struggle, and she had proven herself over and over again. One evening, as they walked together briefly to shelter from rain, he watched her interact with a young boy who had dropped his bag. She picked it up, comforted the boy, and helped him carry it home. She smiled warmly, reassured him, and spoke words of kindness. The old man realized that her generosity extended to all, regardless of age, status, or circumstance. She did not pick and choose. She simply acted from the goodness in her heart. He began to think more seriously about revealing himself. He knew that he could change her life instantly, offering comfort, security, and opportunities she had never dreamed of. But he hesitated. He wanted to ensure that her kindness was not influenced by the prospect of reward. He needed to see if she would remain the same, acting from her heart alone. He observed for days, noting her consistency, patience, and sincerity. Her every action confirmed that her goodness was genuine and unconditional. She continued to balance work, family, and her acts of kindness. She sometimes felt exhausted, but she found strength in the small victories: a smile, thank you, or the relief of someone helped. Life was still difficult, but she faced it with a quiet dignity that inspired those around her. Her small acts of care created a network of hope in her community. People began to notice, though few could articulate why they felt uplifted. Her influence was subtle but profound. The old man watched quietly, increasingly impressed by her resilience and purity. He realized that he had been searching for someone like her for a long time. Someone whose heart was not tainted by selfish motives. Someone whose actions were sincere, and someone whose character could withstand the challenges of life. He began to feel a deep respect, admiration, and even affection for her, though he kept these feelings hidden. He continued to observe, to learn, to appreciate the rare gem of humanity she represented, even in the smallest moments. She showed her extraordinary character. She shared food with a hungry neighbor, comforted a crying child, and offered hope to those who had none. She did not wait for recognition or reward. She acted out of instinct, out of the natural goodness in her heart. The old man saw all of this, and each act strengthened his belief that she was unlike anyone he had ever met. He knew that one day he would have to reveal the truth, but he wanted to wait until he was certain that her heart remained unchanged. Life continued in this quiet, delicate rhythm. She helped, She gave, she smiled, and she endured hardship without losing hope. He watched, he learned, and he appreciated every detail. Their bond was growing silently, built on trust, respect, and understanding. The old man knew that he had found someone extraordinary, someone whose heart could not be measured by wealth, but by the depth of her kindness, and he began to plan for the day when he would finally reveal himself, hoping that she would see him not for what he had, but for the honesty, integrity, and care that he recognized in her heart. The days passed, each filled with her acts of kindness, small struggles, and quiet hope. She still carried out her daily routine with the same determination, waking up early, working hard, helping others whenever possible, and finding little joys in life despite hardships. She never imagined that the man she had been helping and conversing with was someone far more important than anyone could guess. To her, he was a poor man in need of care, nothing more. Her kindness remained pure because she did not expect anything in return. Meanwhile, he had been observing her for a long time, and his admiration had grown into something deeper. He had tested her through small challenges, seen her patience and generosity, and finally realized that her kindness was real, unwavering, and selfless. He knew that revealing his true identity could change her life instantly. But he also feared that it might scare her or make her question his intentions. Still, he knew the time was near. She deserved to know the truth about who he really was. One morning, as she was walking to work carrying a small basket of food for a family in need, he approached her with a gentle smile. There was a calm confidence in his eyes, different from the usual quiet observation she was used to. He asked her if she could walk with him for a moment. She hesitated, wondering why a man in tattered clothes would want to spend time with her, but she agreed. She trusted him because his presence had always been kind and non-judgmental. They walked slowly through the streets, and he began to speak about life, about people, and about how he had seen her help others for no reason but her own goodness. She listened quietly, feeling a sense of comfort, as if he understood the world in a way that others did not. Then he stopped, turned to her, and with a calm voice said, "There is something I need to tell you, something I have kept hidden for a long time. I am not who you think I am." She looked at him, puzzled and slightly afraid. Unsure of what he meant, he explained his story carefully, telling her that he was a wealthy businessman who had lived a life filled with disappointment and betrayal. He had disguised himself as a poor man to observe the world, to see if kindness existed without expectation. He spoke of his past, his experiences with people who had pretended to care, and his search for someone genuine. She listened intently, unable to believe what she was hearing. The man she had been helping, the man she had treated with compassion and respect, was a billionaire. Her mind struggled to process the reality, and her heart raced with a mix of shock, disbelief, and confusion. For a moment, she felt a surge of emotion and gore, confusion, and even fear. Why had he hidden the truth? Was this a test? Had her actions been manipulated? He noticed the questions in her eyes and spoke gently. "I did not reveal myself because I needed to know if your heart was truly kind, if your actions were genuine. I never wanted to trick you, only to understand if goodness like yours existed." She paused, taking in his words. Her heart softened as she realized that he had not intended harm, but had been searching for someone who was pure-hearted. She looked at him closely, noticing the sincerity in his eyes, the calm and gentle tone, and the respect he had always shown. Slowly, she began to believe that he was telling the truth. Her heart, which had given so freely without expectation, now faced a complex reality. Here was a man who had wealth, influence, and power, yet he had chosen to live as someone in need just to find someone genuine. The idea was overwhelming, and yet it made her reflect on her own values and actions. They walked together in silence for a while, each thinking about the journey that had brought them to this point. She remembered the many times she had helped him, given him food, shared her small joys, and offered her heart freely. She realized that her actions had always been sincere, that she had acted with no hidden motive or desire for reward. The realization gave her a sense of calm, quiet reassurance that her heart had been true. He asked her gently, "Will you forgive me for hiding the truth?" She took a deep breath and nodded. "I understand why you did it," she said softly. "You wanted to know if someone could be kind without expecting anything. I can forgive you, because your intention was not to hurt." He smiled, relieved, feeling a sense of connection and trust solidifying between them. They continued walking, no longer as a poor man and a kind girl, but as two people who had found understanding and respect through their shared experiences. Over the next days, he began to help her in ways she had never expected. He offered support for her family, improved the living conditions of her neighborhood, and provided opportunities for her to pursue her dreams. Yet, he did not demand anything in return, nor did he expect her to change her ways. She remained humble, kind, and generous, even as her life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. Her character remained unaltered, and that was what he admired the most. The community began to notice the subtle changes. Streets were cleaner, people were kinder to one another, and children played freely without fear. The once struggling neighborhoods started to thrive, inspired by her actions and supported by his help. Yet she continued to focus on the small things, feeding the hungry, comforting the lonely, and offering words of hope and encouragement. Her heart remained grounded in empathy, love, and selflessness. The revelation of his true identity changed her life, but not her values. She continued to act from her heart, helping others because it was right. It's not because of the wealth or power now available to her. The old man, now revealed as a billionaire, watched her closely. Proud of the integrity she had maintained despite the enormous changes around her, she had proven that true goodness could not be bought. It's only lived. They spent time together, sharing thoughts, stories, and dreams. She realized that his presence was no longer one of observation, but of companionship, respect, and care. She had found someone who appreciated her for who she was, not what she could offer. Their bond grew deeper, built on honesty, understanding, the recognition of true character. As the days went on, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. Her struggles, her sacrifices, and her acts of kindness had all led to a moment of profound change. She realized that her life had meaning beyond her own hardships, that her heart had the power to touch others in ways she had never imagined. She had been rewarded not for seeking reward, but because her goodness was genuine and unwavering. The billionaire, for his part, had found what he had been searching for: someone genuine, selfless, and kind. He had tested her, observed her, and finally revealed the truth, hoping that her heart would remain unchanged. She had not disappointed him. Her character, her kindness, and her humility remained intact, and that was the greatest gift she could offer. Their lives had intertwined in a way that neither had expected, showing that true connection is built on respect, trust, and the purity of intention. Together, they began to plan ways to help the community, improve lives, and spread kindness. She continued her daily routines, now with the support and understanding of someone who shared her values. Her acts of compassion reached further, touching more lives. She remained grounded in the simple principle that kindness is the greatest wealth one can have. The revelation of his true identity had changed her circumstances, but it had not changed her heart. And that was what made her story remarkable. In quiet moments, she would reflect on her journey, remembering the early days when she had simply given food and care to a stranger in need. She marveled at how those small acts of kindness had led to a transformation in her life, a new beginning built on trust, respect, and the power of a genuine heart. She had learned that goodness is noticed, that it is tested, and that it can change lives in ways beyond imagination. The old man, now openly walking as a wealthy man, continued to admire her daily. He saw in her a rare soul, someone whose goodness was pure and unwavering. Her acts of kindness, her patience, and her integrity had drawn him in, teaching him that true wealth is found in the heart, not in money or power. He had found what he had been searching for, not just a partner, but someone whose values aligned with the deepest truths he had come to cherish. Her life was no longer defined solely by struggle. She had opportunities, security, and comfort. Yet she continued to walk the same streets, help the same people, and give from the heart. She had not changed, and that was what made her extraordinary. The revelation of his identity had altered her world, but her spirit, humility, and kindness remained untouched, proving that true character can endure any change and continue to shine brightly. Together, they became a force for good, quietly improving lives, inspiring the community, and showing that the most profound transformations often come from simple acts of compassion. She had proven that kindness attracts kindness, integrity brings trust, and a genuine heart can touch the world in ways that no wealth or power can replicate. Their journey had reached a turning point, one that marked the beginning of a new chapter filled with hope, understanding, and the shared belief in the power of a kind heart. Her life had changed in ways she never imagined, yet she remained the same at heart. She continued to wake early, care for her family, help neighbors, and find small ways to bring happiness to those around her. The revelation of the old man's true identity as a billionaire had surprised her, but it had not altered her values or her approach to life. She gave because she felt it was right, not because she expected reward. And that was exactly what made her extraordinary. The billionaire, now openly a part of her life, admired her daily. He had seen her kindness tested in countless ways, and she had never faltered. Every small act of compassion, every sacrifice, and every moment of patience had proven her heart was genuine. He often reflected on how rare it was to find someone so selfless in a world that often prioritized wealth, power, and personal gain. She had not only touched his life, but reminded him of the importance of love, empathy, and integrity. With his resources, he began to support her quietly and thoughtfully. He improved her family's living conditions, ensured that her neighborhood received help, and provided opportunities that would allow her to pursue her dreams. Yet he never pressured her or asked her to change. He knew her heart was what mattered most, and he wanted her to remain herself. She adapted to the changes naturally, using the resources to help others rather than focusing on herself. Her humility and dedication to kindness stayed intact. The community noticed the changes as well. Streets became cleaner. People began helping each other more, and children played safely, without fear. Elderly residents received more care, and families struggling with poverty found support. Her actions, now amplified by the billionaire's resources, had a profound effect. Yet she continued to focus on the small, personal acts that mattered most to her, feeding the hungry, comforting the lonely, and encouraging those who felt hopeless. She never sought recognition, but her influence spread quietly, touching countless lives. One day she found a young girl sitting alone near the market, crying quietly. She approached the girl, asking gently what was wrong. The girl explained that she had lost her parents and felt abandoned. The young woman held her hand, comforted her, and promised to help. She found temporary care for the girl, arranged schooling, and made sure she felt safe and loved. These acts were not grand gestures in the eyes of the world, but to those who received them, they were life-changing. Her compassion had become a guiding light for many who had lost hope. The billionaire watched these moments closely, his admiration for her growing each day. He saw how she treated every individual with the same care, whether a child, an elder, or a stranger. Her generosity did not discriminate, and her actions were never motivated by gratitude or recognition. He realized that true wealth lies in a person's heart, and she had more than anyone he had ever met. He felt grateful that she had chosen to be kind, and he knew that her life, now supported by his help, could reach even further to improve the world around her. Even with the new comforts and opportunities, she maintained her routines and values. She continued to rise early, cook for her family, and help those in need. She still walked through the streets, delivering small meals, offering advice, and comforting those who were struggling. Her life had changed materially, but her heart remained grounded. She was humble and approachable, never letting wealth or status interfere with her natural compassion. The old man, now openly part of her life, often joined her in her acts of kindness. Together they worked to improve the community, bringing small but meaningful changes. They supported families in need, provided resources for education, and encouraged young people to pursue their dreams. Yet they never overshadowed her natural actions. She remained the guiding force, the one whose heart had inspired these changes. He simply amplified her efforts and respected her vision, allowing her to remain herself. She also began to teach others in the community about the importance of kindness. Children learned from her example. Neighbors started helping each other. Small businesses offered support to those in need. Her influence, combined with his resources, created a ripple effect of generosity and compassion. She realized that her actions, no matter how small, could inspire many and bring hope to those who had none. The true reward was not recognition or material wealth, but the knowledge that her kindness was making a lasting impact at home. She continued to care for her family with the same dedication she had always shown. She cooked meals, cleaned, and supported them in every way possible. The new resources allowed them to live comfortably, but she never allowed comfort to make her complacent. She continued to act with purpose, ensuring that her family also understood the value of empathy and compassion. Her example became a lesson not just for strangers, but for those closest to her, showing that true kindness begins at home and extends outward. In her personal moments, she often reflected on her journey. She thought about the early days, when she had simply shared bread with a stranger, unaware that he was watching. She remembered the quiet satisfaction she felt from helping others, the challenges she faced, and the perseverance she maintained. These memories reminded her that her life had meaning beyond her struggles, and that her heart had the power to create change. She realized that every small act of goodness could ripple outward, touching lives she might never even see. The billionaire, inspired by her example, became more than just a supporter. He learned from her patience, her humility, and her unwavering kindness. She taught him that love and empathy were more valuable than money or influence, and that genuine connection could not be bought. Together, they worked as a team, balancing resources with compassion, strategy with heart, and guidance with freedom. Their partnership was built on mutual respect, understanding, and the shared belief that the world could be a better place. If people acted with genuine care, their efforts extended beyond immediate neighbors. They supported schools, provided healthcare resources, and offered assistance to struggling families. Each act of generosity was carefully considered, ensuring it would have a meaningful impact. She remained at the center, leading by example, while he provided the tools and support to make her vision a reality. The transformation was quiet but profound, showing that one person's goodness, combined with thoughtful support, could change countless lives. As time passed, her reputation as a kind, selfless person grew, but she remained humble. She never let attention or praise change her behavior. She continued to act naturally, with a heart full of compassion and a spirit unbroken by hardship. The billionaire often reflected on how rare such a person was. Someone whose character remained intact despite challenges, recognition, and new opportunities. He felt grateful to have found her. Knowing that she would continue to inspire goodness wherever she went, the community thrived under their combined efforts. Streets were safer, families were supported, children were educated, and the elderly felt cared for. Yet her influence remained personal and direct. She continued to visit homes, share meals, listen to concerns, and offer comfort. Her humility ensured that every act remained genuine, reinforcing the idea that kindness is most powerful when it is authentic and heartfelt. She had become a symbol of hope, proving that true goodness could create lasting change, even with all the improvements and support. She remained connected to the simple joys of life. She enjoyed small moments like watching children play, seeing neighbors help one another, or simply walking through the streets she had always known. These moments reminded her that life's true value is not measured by wealth or status, but by the love and compassion shared with others. She continued to live by her values, teaching through example and showing that a kind heart can be the most powerful force in the world. In quiet moments, she and the billionaire would reflect on their journey. They remembered the early days, the challenges, and the moments that had tested and proven her character. They spoke of dreams for the future, for continued kindness, and for lasting positive change. She realized that her life had been transformed not only by circumstance, but by the integrity she had maintained throughout. Her story showed that true kindness attracts the right people, opens doors, and can change the world without expectation. Her legacy began to take shape. The people she had touched, inspired, and helped were beginning to act with the same values. Children learned empathy, families learned generosity, and the community learned the importance of caring for one another. Her influence spread quietly but powerfully, proving that even small acts of kindness, when done consistently and sincerely, can grow into a movement that changes lives. She understood that her heart was her greatest strength, and it was this strength that had created real and lasting impact. Through it all, she remained humble, grounded, and human. She faced life's challenges with patience, celebrated small victories with gratitude, and continued to offer love and care to anyone in need. The billionaire admired her not just for her kindness, but for her unwavering integrity, the way she had remained herself, the way she had inspired transformation without seeking reward. Her story concluded not with wealth or recognition, but with the profound truth that a pure heart can create a better world and touch lives in ways that last forever. She had proven that true character, and genuine kindness can withstand any change, and that giving without expectation is one of the most powerful forces in life. Her journey from struggle to influence was guided by empathy, courage, and love. And as she continued to walk the streets she knew so well, helping those around her and inspiring change, it was clear that her story was not just about her life, but about the timeless impact of a kind heart, showing that one person's goodness can truly change the world.